So I recorded this once already, but I butchered a couple of key things, and where this progresses to, I thought it important just to talk very quickly um, about degrees and how I use them to notate, different patterns. Um, and I think it's useful. I'm still in G major 7, which I'll talk about in a second. But if I look at a G major 7 and an E minor 7, um, and you note say a 1, you go the first 5 notes, um, F sharp. Generally, I think about these as the extensions. Uh, in between the standard 4 notes to form the 7th chord. So here I think about it as a 1, a 9, 3, 11, 5. And they connect to the chord. Same thing here. And then I'll just add the 7th just because, flat 7, just because it'll make sense here in a sec. So in the context of the G major 7, the E here is a 13. And in the context of the E minor 7, the E is a 1. So you go 1, 9, flat 3. So again, the G here is a 1 in the G major 7, but it's a flat 3. So it's always relative to the major counterpart. So because this isn't a G sharp, it's a G natural. So the interval between the root note E and the G forms a flat third. 11, 5, and then the D is not a D sharp. If it was a D sharp, it'd be a major 7. Because it's D natural, you have a flat 7. So just a quick thing about patterns, which I get to in a second. So when I talk about the exercise that I had done before in a couple of past videos, where I'm really focusing on, it is the standard of the month, so it's the first 4 bars. It's a common cadence which is a 1, 6, 2, 5. Comes up all the time. And something we talk about is chord tone maps, and I picked that off from what Brent and Brett talk about really frequently, which is navigating your way through changes. So G major 7, E minor 7 being the 6, being the 1, A minor 7 being the 2, and then D 7 being the 5, right? So I mean, you can voice lead this that are a step or a half step or staying on the same tone. But for me, the mapping resonates a little bit better with me. So I'm just picking one note. There's other ways you can do it too, but I'm just trying to find the one note that starts connecting the chord changes. Now, if I just pause and revert back to even something I got a lot of mileage out of, which was the thirds exercise, it was mapping the thirds. So if you map the thirds out, you have a B, which is the third of the G major. You have a G, which is the minor third of the E. You have a C natural, which is the minor third of the A. And then you have a F sharp, which is the major third of the D7 chord. It's this hopping that I found when I'm doing performances live. It's this hopping that I started to find is a lot when I'm not super familiar with the chord changes. Or it's in a key that I haven't practiced as much as, say, others. So what I decided to do was start finding a closer interval to connect sort of these guys. This one to this one makes sense. And so then I just said, okay, I'm going to live with playing a fifth. So the E is the fifth of the A. I mean, you could do others, but right now this is what I have. So then this transition is actually quite nice. And I find there being thirds, it gives me some space to work with different things. And I can either go up and down into the third. I can either go down and then up, or I can go straight down. So there's a lot of flexibility here in how I navigate those things. And it's not so far away that if I just stayed on the B and then hit the G, it's close enough that it actually sounds fine just doing that. So like I say, I found this, trying to approach them in thirds is just like a reasonable interval to work with. Gives me a lot of flexibility, and it's not so far away that if either I don't have an idea or I'm stuck or whatever, I can just play the thirds and I'm okay. Or play a third away and I'm okay. So then that takes us, that's the chord map that I'm trying to get used to. And the goal here is to eventually take it through all 12 keys once I'm familiar. But again, the last video was about a lot about articulation. So what am I doing? I'm trying to incorporate the articulation, the idea of continuous scales, and I'm going to write this down here in a sec. The idea of continuous scales, chord tone maps, some phrasing, all in one exercise through common cadences. So that brings us to sort of this. So what I did was, excuse me, I wrote out, what degree. I'm taking the B, which is the third, right? So this is the third of the G. This is the flat third of the E minor 7. This is the 5, and this is the major third of the D7. So I'm taking them out. Excuse me. The last video, I mentioned how important it is to try and get the articulation correct on one note. And my one note now is going to start shifting depending upon the shifting chord and the chord tone map. So I'm saying, okay, I'm going to be on the B for the first bar. I'm going to be on the G for the second bar. I'm going to be on the E for the third bar. And then on the last bar, I am doing a bit of something different. I'm deviating a bit. And this is where I'm incorporating phrasing. So just trying to get used to the 4-bar cadence and ending the phrase on that 4th bar. And this is a fairly common thing, is you're just doing an accented chord tone into chord tone and then leaving it there. So once you have those mapped out and you're in sort of 8th notes, then I add my breath attacks, which is, the same, again, that same exercise I did before. So then I kind of want to see how this plays out, right? So now I've done all this work to get to this first sort of guide tone or chord tone map that maps out the chord changes. I've started including the breath attacks, and I want to see how it kind of sounds from an articulation perspective. So da 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 da. Okay. So then I try that on the trumpet. I don't know. Okay. Now where it gets, and I guarantee I'm going to mess this up. So this is why I've been working on this so much. Now doing that while doodle tonguing is a lot of stuff. So doodle, doodle, doodle. But it's challenging, but I find it fun. So I'm trying to go doodle, 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 hit the breath attacks, and change the notes to hit the chord tones. I'll try it. It's going to be bad. Yeah, not bad. Now we get to the this is the hardest part of the exercise, the development of the exercise. So we're taking it from, first principles, so to speak, on a bunch of different stuff. And now we're saying, okay, how do we make that even more musical? And we start to add in licks or note choices or whatever. So I think in one of my last videos I said, now you don't even have to, if you're gonna emphasize a note in a bar, and you're able to emphasize that note as a chord change or as a chord tone, and it doesn't necessarily matter when you hit it, as long as you hit it. Like there's caveats and whatever to all of that. Then I think all we're trying to do is get in and out of that chord tone, accent that chord tone to emphasize the underlying harmony, and I think that's it, right? I think that's one of the keys to developing the language, and so it's a bit messy down here, but let me just start with these licks in terms of note choices. I'll rewrite the chord change up here. I'm just going to do the first two, otherwise I'll probably mess it up. I'll erase some of this stuff, and then this is where we're at here, right? So this stuff here is the important bits. So again, one of the exercises I've gotten a lot of mileage out of is continuous scales, and that's trying to play the scales throughout the entire measure, throughout the entire 4-bar phrase, as a way to start thinking about connecting the various chord changes, and to start developing some fluidity. And again, it's all Brett and Brent stuff that they've talked about before. Continuous scales, scale maps, chord tones, and then and so what I'm thinking here is, how do I get into the important chord note of that bar? I'm really going to focus only on one portion of this articulation exercise here, and that's this accent on the one and accent on the and of the two. So we also see this is the common Coltrane thing where you do 3 notes next to each other and then a note a third away. So here we go. We add in the accents. I've been playing around with this enough to know that, like, descending into this note here, which is the minor third of the E minor 7, and chromatically ascending into whatever note I'm starting on here, which just happens to be the 9th, which is a juicy note anyway, is a good place to be. So yeah, it sounds really, really neat. When I just play the notes here, right? And then if you add the accents, and yeah, lots of good motion there. So now taking this concept that I did down here, which is the degrees, I'm gonna say this is the 6, this is the major 7, this is the 1, this is the major third. And then we're gonna do something around here. Then we're gonna lead into the 9. I'm gonna go back and call this the 13th. This is the 9. Then we're into the 11, flat 11, and then the minor third, flat third for this note. Now I'm going to do it kind of slow. First, just the notes. And I'm actually going to write this middle bit out because I've started to really like what I'm doing here. I go here, a flat one of these, and then I go E, F, and then it's F sharp. So we're F natural. Sorry for the mess, but it should hopefully help. Now I'm not going to worry too much about the accents here because I feel like I've already got enough to think about. And I'm not going to worry about writing out the scale degrees here. So again, this little lick goes. Right? Now we try to add the accents. So now I'm hearing an accent here. So I will add the accent on that note, just going into the F sharp. Yeah, I like that. So next we try to do the doodle tonguing, which is and then we add the accents on where I've noted here. So we go. And I think if you were to speed that up, that's got a really nice swing phrase to it. But all this stuff is like, you know, we're looking at articulation and two parts. It's breath attacks. It is doodle, slurring. We're looking at note choices, which is your chord tone map. We're looking at continuous scales. We're looking at chromaticism. And then we're looking at phrasing. And then from a theory perspective, I would just say to some degree that's, you know, note choices as well, but the analysis itself is looking at, you know, connecting chords. It's scale / chord degrees. It's extensions. Yeah. Oh, and then I'm just going to say also cadences. So when you look at the 1, 6, 2, 5, it's just recognizing that it's a common cadence and what sort of patterns you can kind of do to slot in there. Yeah, anyway, that's sort of how I build into well, how I'm going from my current rabbit hole articulation and really just trying to put it into everything. I just, yeah, similar to the thirds exercise, I feel like I'm just going to get a ton of mileage out of it.